Hey, it's Mateo Lopez of Two Brain Marketing. On this edition of the Two Brain Marketing Podcast, I'm talking to Jonathan and Tyler of CrossFit Resurrection. You'll hear about their experience going from coaches to buying out the previous owners of their gym. You're going to learn more about their growth in the Two Brain Incubator and how last month they spent $800 on ads and generated over $5,000 in front-end sales. You'll also hear their take on what it takes to have and maintain a successful partnership in the gym business. So you don't want to miss this. Make sure to subscribe to Two Brain Radio for more marketing tips and secrets each week. Hello and welcome to the Two Brain Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Mateo Lopez. I'm one of the digital marketing mentors at Two Brain Business. Thanks for tuning in. This is your weekly dose of digital marketing magic. Every week we'll go over marketing campaign strategies, useful tips and updates to keep you in the loop on what's going on advertising on the internet. And in today's episode, I'm coming to you from Los Angeles. I'm not in my normal office for those of you who are watching this instead of just listening to it. So that's why I might be in the dark slightly. But we have very special guests today. We have Jonathan and Tyler from CrossFit Resurrection. And in this week's episode, you're going to learn about their experience and how over the last month they spent over $800 in paid ads and were able to generate over $5,000 in front-end sales. So we're going to learn about that right now. What's going on, guys?
Not much. How are you?
Doing great. For those tuning in, maybe don't know you, tell us a little about who you are, where you're from, and what's your business.
Yes, so my name is Jonathan Gibbons, and this is Tyler Lee. We are co-owners of CrossFit Resurrection, and we're located in Barrie, Ontario, Canada.
I think we've been owners for about 3 years now. We took over from an ownership team that opened it up in 2011. We were both members and kind of approached with the opportunity to take it over. I think it kind of grew to the point where it was no longer a hobby for the current owners, and they kind of approached it wasn't what they were getting into, and they wanted to get out. So we took on the opportunity to purchase it and build it up. That's where we are now.
How'd you guys get into CrossFit?
I came from a hockey background, and then when I was done playing hockey, I kind of still had a big competitive drive to be fit and want to be healthy. And I had a few years lapse where kind of my health went poor, I guess is what you say. And so a buddy of mine introduced me to CrossFit, and I think like in the first week I was in love with it and the methodology of it and just the intensity of it. It's something that was really geared towards my interests. So it wasn't hard for me to pick up and fall in love with it.
Yeah, I kind of came from a similar background. I was playing a lot of sports as a kid, had a scholarship to the States for soccer, and it kind of just found CrossFit as a way to fill a competitive void. I started actually doing it on my own, like just at a regular gym and in my garage at home, and just found it was just easy to follow the structured workouts and compare to people across the board, and that kind of lured me into a CrossFit gym, just made it a little bit easier to do the open actually. So that was the main reason I got into it. And I think that was back in 2014. Just been doing it ever since.
Awesome. And how long have you been with Two Brain?
We've been with Two Brain for eight months now.
Was it November or October? November?
Yeah.
November 2017?
2018.
2018? Yeah, it's 19.
Yeah, so about 8 months now, yeah.
And what was life like before going through the incubator?
Business life was, I found that like Tyler and I both come from backgrounds where we've kind of been taught to work really hard, and that like no matter what, hard work will always kind of pay off and we'll get where we need to go. When we took over the business, so we thought like, you know, as long as we worked hard, things are going to work out in our favor and things were always going to get better. And I think about like, I don't know, halfway through year 2, we kind of realized that like we were working really hard, but we were kind of just spinning in circles, and like we'd go up in revenue, we go down in revenue, we go up in revenue. And it was like, we wanted to know what we were doing was going to be in the right direction. We kind of always wanted to figure out how we could always just be going up ideally. And then we kind of look back at our our abilities and what we were good at and what we knew, and kind of we needed to realize understand what we didn't know, and that led us to kind of joining up with Two Brain. We had I attended a seminar, I think like almost 3 years ago, with Chris, and I came back kind of really fired up, and we made some changes immediately back after that seminar from Chris, and that led to a really positive experience. And then I think we kind of thought we were good from there, and then we carried on with the way we were going, and we eventually back in November it led to us signing up with to join the Incubator program. So I wouldn't say like business was poor before we got involved. It just really wasn't going anywhere drastically out.
I would say like at the point that we took over, it was pretty much in a position like it could only had room for growth. It was a pretty small operation, like home run operation. There wasn't a lot of systems in place. And by that, I don't even mean like business systems. Like we didn't have a POS system. We had no way of like tracking any like financial income or profit or expenses. It was literally just like play by the seat of your pants, and you just kind of pay the bills as they came in. So I think we did a good job at organizing it from that end, getting a POS system, starting to have like an accountant track stuff for us. And that seemed to organize things a little bit for us. But at the time, I don't think we knew really why we were running in circles until we did this. But now looking back, I think it's safe to say that we just didn't have any systems in place, and we were just relying on ourselves to do everything. And when we were in the gym, we're putting a lot of time into something. For example, we run a massive competition that it started small and it's grown into a big competition in December. And when we put a lot of time into it, it creates a lot of revenue, and we build it up and we market it just based off our own social media platforms. And we built it up to like 150 people, like 60, 70 teams in this competition. And then we would generate $10,000 to $15,000 in 1 month, but then we would wear ourselves thin and we would just relax for a bit, and we would create enough revenue from that to kind of float what we needed, and it just wasn't carrying over. But now looking back, it's like now we have a lot of systems in place where we don't have to do a lot of these things. They kind of take care of themselves, or we have employees doing it. So it's kind of streamlined the operation a bit and just made it way more sustainable.
Why did you decide to go to that first seminar with Chris?
I attended the seminar just basically on chance. Like Tyler was at the comp, I had nothing to do, and Jen and Steph, the owners of CrossFit Industry, they were boasting about Chris so much, and they were saying how good he was. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'm going to go. And so it was just by pure chance that I went, and it was Chris is very inspiring and he's very motivating. And I came back to Ty with like a level of excitement that was Ty had a hard time understanding it, like until he actually read some of the material from Chris and got some understanding. But it's easy to come back from a conversation with Chris and be super motivated and eager to do things. I actually had the opportunity to have like a one-on-one conversation with Chris after a seminar, and he helped me make probably one of our toughest decisions. I would say one of our toughest decisions as owners to date. So
and the best lessons I've probably learned.
Yeah, and best lessons, yeah, for sure. So he helped us make that decision. It was great.
You want to tell me what that was?
Yeah, so when we took over the business, we agreed to keep on the previous owners.
Let's just start by saying when we took it over, what had they been operating for? That would have been like their fourth year.
Yeah, fifth year.
So they were operating for 5 years at the same, with zero inflation on pricing. So their prices were set back in 2011, and they hadn't made a 5-cent increase since then in 5 years. So we were kind of stuck at that price point, which I think at the time was approximately $50 to $80 a month less than our competitors. So we were getting a lot of the clients that just didn't want to spend the money at these other facilities, and we were starting to increase our volume that way. But then Gibby will tell you what our next step was with Chris. And why it was a difficult one. Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, well, Chris initially when I met with him, there was two things that Chris kind of encouraged me to do and go home and take action on. Was increasing our prices was the number one, and how to do that. And then the other one would have been we had to fire essentially the previous owners, because we agreed to keep them on as coaches, and it was
they had a very negative response to us increasing prices because they set those prices originally. They were kind of going behind our back and creating a very negative environment in our facility. So
I think they just had way too many personal relationships, and it was just getting in the way of like business operations even before we took over.
Yeah,
I think that was the biggest issue they had.
Yeah. So we sat down with them, and it was a really hard thing to do because we'd known them for so long. So we had to let them go. That was a tough decision, but kind of if I didn't have that conversation with Chris, I definitely wouldn't have been able to come back with the understanding and the confidence to make that decision.
When people go through the incubator, a lot of times they're faced with some of these tougher decisions. What advice do you have to anyone who is thinking about, hey, maybe I need to raise my prices, or I need to make some kind of pretty significant change to the business? What's your advice to someone in how to address the members and deal with that?
And I think I learned this from Chris after Gibby had talked to him, was like, definitely calculate it out. Like there's a lot of math behind doing your metrics and figuring out, first of all, what you're going to increase to, how you can justify your increase. And then you can do the math and the metrics on it and kind of see if how many members you lose make it worth it, how many or how many members you have to lose for you to start losing money. And we kind of found, like, based off the services that were being provided around us and from competitors or fellow CrossFit gyms, if you want to call it. And we kind of found that healthy median of where we could kind of justify the increase. We could also pad any like loss of clients at the same time and kind of break even. So we're running at less volume, but we're running at way higher value. And I would say if you're at that point and you're trying to make that decision, just punch those numbers quickly or contact Two Brain and get them to calculate it for you or talk you through it, and then just make the increase. Don't try to justify it by grandfathering rates in or making small increases. It's just kind of I don't even know if they mentioned it, but just rip the Band-Aid off, make a big jump and pull the Band-Aid off. I was terrified, to be honest.
Yeah. I found my biggest advice for people would, most CrossFit gym owners, we come in and that whole left brain, right brain thing is like, we often make decisions based on our emotions and how we feel and off our personal relations. And I think what Tyler's alluding to is that, look at the numbers, right? It's okay to look at those numbers, and it's okay to use those numbers. We need to it's great that we work with our emotions and we work with personal relations, but it's also just as important to work the other side of the brain and crunch those numbers and use those numbers.
I feel like you feel like the enemy, or you feel like a bad person when you want to make money. And I think we went through that for a few years. We both have jobs outside of the gym, and you almost feel guilty trying to make a profit. You know what I mean? So we spent the first couple of years just like trying to put money back into the gym and not paying ourselves, because it was like, well, I don't want to pay myself because people are going to think like I'm trying to screw them over or I'm trying to take their money. But it's like this is a business. Like, we should be making money, and I feel like a lot of people are scared to do that. You know what I mean? You don't want people to think you're just in it to take their money. But if you're providing them something, like, you should be making money off of it. Is the easiest way for me to put it. And it took me a while to realize that.
Yeah, it's a mind shift for sure. It's a shift in thinking. I went through the same thing, man. When I was on the employee side too, it's like, oh no, I shouldn't ask for more money. Like, I shouldn't, like, this is what supposed to, I don't want people to think I'm taking vacations or no, like, and I get it. And I think it is because it's so interpersonal, right? You're selling yourself. You are selling. It is a relationship business in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, right?
And
so I think that's why that bleeds over.
Lots of value, then it's worth it.
100%. But I think it's why it's not instinctual for us to think, if you're coming into this from that kind of a background of helping first and just loving CrossFit, and I think it's why it's hard to see that. But yeah, I think but once you can understand that, and like you said, look at the numbers, it's critical, because if you can't make a profit, if you can't pay yourself, you can't grow, and you can't help people. Yeah, totally. Well, then we're talking about numbers. You mentioned earlier your competitions and some of the things like that. What is it that you guys sell, and how do you sell it?
I would say that we sell solutions to people's problems, or sell solutions to their goals, right? Yeah, and number one, we sell coaching. Like we sell a fix. We don't kind of beat around the bush. We sell a solution to someone's problems via coaching, and that could be in a number of different ways, whether it be nutrition, whether it be movement, whether it be group class, lots of different things.
And how do you sell it?
We sell face-to-face. Like we sell it through relationships, face-to-face relationships. We get people in the door, and we sit down with them and we tell them how we can help them, and we make sure that meeting occurs face-to-face with people, so we can create that relationship.
You mentioned getting people in the door. What was your strategy for attracting new members prior to Two Brain?
Just organic growth and word of mouth. I think we were starting to build up a bit of a social media platform on Instagram just because there wasn't one before. But we had no way of tracking leads or drawing leads in or giving them the opportunity to book. It was pretty much just simply putting out an email address and a phone number and hoping for the best.
Yeah. Word of mouth from our current member, like referrals sometimes, or people that were walking in were finding us on the web.
We had no digital marketing in place at all.
And was it just a time issue, or was it just you had nowhere to start, or what was preventing you guys from?
A lot about it at the time. Like neither of us had business backgrounds. I had no experience with doing like digital advertising. I think one of the steps we missed here too, before we got into Two Brain, is we actually had a friend of ours who's in marketing and advertising. He actually came to us and said, "Hey, like nobody's running ads in this area. You guys need to be running ads." And we were like, what the hell are ads? Like, what are we doing?
Okay.
How do you know what you're talking about right now? Like, we can't afford that. You know what I mean? Like, we just didn't know enough about it to give him an educated answer. And he was like, well, I'll be your guy. Like, I'll get you set up. I'll get all this stuff in place for your marketing and advertising and stuff. And then he was like, the question that he came back with was, if I get you guys 100 people in the door, how many of them can you sell? And then that was when like, whoa, okay, like we need to sit down and think about this. So he left, and Gibby was like, or John was like, I think we should do Two Brain. And now looking back through it, it's like we essentially would have been jumping through the incubator, going right to marketing, and we would have had no systems in place to handle the volume of people that he would have generated, because the leads would have came. I've seen how the marketing works now. He would have got us 100 people in the door, and we probably would have been able to sell 0 of them. We just wouldn't have been we wouldn't have been ready for it. We would have had no processes in place. We wouldn't have known what to do. So that was kind of where we started with Two Brain, was like right at that moment. I think we signed up for Two Brain the next day.
Pretty much, yeah.
Thank God.
So he said, if I get you 100 people, I get you 100 leads, are you going to be able to sell them? And you said
you have processes in place to handle that. And we said, okay. We didn't even answer him, I don't think. I think we just said, yeah, give us a couple days and we'll think about it.
Yeah, we knew. We kind of were overwhelmed. We're like, well, what do we do with 100 people? Like, what do we do with 100 leads? How do we sell? Like, yeah, we might have been able to sell a few, but
I'm not here. I can't do it. Yeah. Like, it was me and John were like, well, we're not here. And we had no coaches that were making sales at that point. They didn't even know how to input people in a computer at that point. We were doing all that.
Right. So this is a problem that a lot of people have, even going through the incubator. It's like, hey, I'm still coaching all the classes. Like, I don't know how I'm going to take care of this. So obviously you went through the mentoring process, but how did you guys fix this problem? Because that was really it seems to be the blockage. All right, there is a way to get 100 leads, but there's a systems error. We won't be able to sell them. So how did you guys end up fixing that problem?
The incubator.
So the incubator helps out a lot. So working with our mentor, we created a lot of systems on and through the marketing too, lead nurturing, following up with people. We learned how to do the sales, how to do NSI. We implemented NSIs. We implemented a proper on-ramping process, like a structured SOP to on-ramping process, a structured SOP NSI process. Just recently, within the last few months, we've worked with standardizing and SOPing how we do our lead nurturing. So having those processes in place and having a systematic approach to how somebody comes through your door, right from their opt-in, or right from even if they don't go through the click, even from a phone call, having that process that everyone follows the same process has standardized everything and made it so it's, there's no question about how, there's no confusion.
No assuming common sense, I think is what Chris says.
Yeah.
Write out everything, every little process, even the benign process that you think anybody would be able to do and figure out, make sure you write it out. So we started writing out literally everything: how to turn the lights on, how to fill a mop bucket, how to turn a computer on if you find, like, how to troubleshoot stuff. And we I don't think we've stopped writing SOPs since we started the incubator. We always find something, we're like, let's write an SOP for it, and it definitely streamlines everything.
I think that's so critical. I think that last thing you just said, yeah, don't assume anything. If there's something that needs to be done, just write it down and write down how to do it. How did you guys get your staff trained up? I guess that was kind of what I was alluding to. Yeah, the incubator. I mean, everything you guys just said was, I think, spot on. But how did you knew once you wrote these SOPs down, how did you get everyone trained up and on board?
We are very, very fortunate that we have two coaches in our gym that basically came to us and were like, well, we want full-time career. We want to do this full-time.
This is before we started Two Brain too. Like, this is right when we took over.
Yeah. They said we want to be full-time. So when we started with Two Brain and we started this incubator process, it was really, we're very fortunate in the fact that Tyler and I could learn a process, SOP it, run it a couple times, not having to run it very long. And then it was very easy to transition onto these two coaches. So Tyler and I never really got tied up doing anything for too long. And we were able to kind of, like, our mentors will say that we get a task and we whip through it really quickly. We get it done and then we move on and we're ready for the next thing. So we're very fortunate. We have two full-time coaches that work very, very hard. And they want this to be their career. So they're
at the time when we were just starting going through this process, we had the one, and we kind of had him in like a general manager, head coach role initially. And then we had a second coach come to us with more of a full-time attitude, and they wanted to get into running a nutrition program. And at that time we were going through the incubator, and we knew we had to open up a few more legs for income streams. So it was a no-brainer to bring her on. She was good friends with our general manager, and she had a good rapport in the CrossFit industry. So we brought her on, and she kind of came on at a good time because we were starting to grow at that time, and we had all these other legs that we needed to fulfill, and she fulfilled one of them for us, and that allowed our general manager to just focus on the other two, and we could just kind of take an even further step back and just run operationally and grow and and implement things and run this. And we're lucky that they're both very driven, just like we are, and they kind of understand. I think initially we were pretty hard people to work for, just because we like things done a certain way, but I feel like they have the same mindset as us. They like things done right. They like to follow up on things, and they like having systems in place. So it was kind of an easy transition for us. I don't even know what we would do without them. I don't know where we would be without them, to be honest. I don't know how other people do it, because apparently this isn't normal. So to me, this is normal. So I don't know how other people do it.
I mean, that's true. I think it's both, right? Like, if you're fortunate enough to find people who are on board and proactive from the get and who are hungry.
I think it took a bit to make them aware of the possibilities, for sure. But I think going through the incubator and having people who have done it firsthand, and people who have experienced growth and have experienced the opportunity to make money as a personal trainer and a staff member of a gym or a CrossFit in the CrossFit industry, once they kind of heard that, and they just got back from the summit in Chicago, and we brought both those coaches with us. I wasn't there, but John went down with them. I think it kind of opened their eyes and said, hey, Ty and John aren't blowing smoke. This is real, and we're starting to see it. And now we've heard it from many other people, and I think that even motivated them even more. So. Yeah,
I think that's that education piece, right? Yeah, just showing them what's possible. I think you're totally right. That's a very important piece there.
It's a massive misconception, man. I talk to my family even all the time, and they're like, how's the gym going? And I'm like, it's going great. It's growing. And they're like, yeah, you're only going to make this. Or it's really just a hobby. You know what I mean? You're like, and I usually I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't even want to tell them what the possibilities are because no one's going to believe you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean on that one. Yeah, no, I can relate to that for sure. So tell me a little about then the system that you guys have built out to attract new members and the paid advertising piece. Tell me about, what you guys do there and a little bit about the SOPs that you have for your staff to make sure you guys are taking care of leads and making sales.
Okay, so before we even got into marketing, we were at that point where we were developing these SOPs and we were kind of streamlining our intake process. So first of all, we had to put one in place. So we said, okay, well, when people come in through the door or people contact us, what's our process going to be? It needs to be the same every time.
Right, no matter the channel that they came in,
exactly. So
even before you're doing ads.
So that was when we implemented the No-Sweat Intro. We kind of put that name on it. We put the system in place on the computer and in our POS system. We gave them, two clicks or less. You can book on every social media platform. Yep. Or every platform that we had, they could book with 1 click or 2 clicks or less. And it all went to our operating system. We use Zen Planner. And I kind of embedded that in every system that we had, working with one of our guys that does all that for us. And we made it very simple. We sat down, we had a meeting, we showed the coaches, other than our manager and then our other head coach that we were just telling you about. And we said, okay, guys, here's what we have going on. Here's a No-Sweat Intro. All you need to be able to do when people come in is click this link. Here's all the links on Instagram, on Facebook, on our website. And here's a giant link on all the computers in the gym. If someone walks through the door and asks you a question about the gym, you say, perfect. Click the link, and I'm going to sign you up for a 15-minute no-sweat intro.
Right.
You can have a discussion with them. No more of this. Here's our prices. Here's this. Perfect. Let's get you signed up for a 15-minute no-sweat intro. And they were all on board with that, and they've been doing that ever since. And it's way easier for them just because of the way we kind of operate things. We don't have a front admin girl at this point. We're starting to explore that now with growth. But it was an easy way for them to walk away from class for 2 minutes and say, get them booked in.
It's like if you're coaching class, you're working out, it's fine. Here, go to this link. You tell that person, no, just, if they're caught up, they're coaching, whatever, it's like, great, take 2 seconds, point them to this link, and you can go back.
Essentially everything went to the No-Sweat Intro. We even created an actual paper copy of the information we needed to book a No-Sweat Intro. So if they were really jammed up, they could say, hey, yeah, perfect. Here, fill this sheet out, this intake form out, and I'll be over to talk to you if you have 15 minutes. If not, just leave this on our desk and we'll get you booked in. Fill this out. So that streamlined everything in that case, and we already got a lot of opportunities without even marketing yet to at least contact people. So that was our first step in creating leads, like organic leads, is at least we can contact these people. We had a huge problem with people coming in and coach saying, oh, this person came in. Oh, what's their phone number? Oh, I didn't get a phone number. I just got first name.
Right.
We can't do much with a first name. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard, and we didn't realize the importance that we need to have ways of contacting these people. So we kind of started with that first. We had the NSIs in process in place before we started marketing, and we kind of started practicing with me and John doing the first couple, I believe. Yep. And at that same time, we developed the NSI process. We developed our on-ramp process.
And we, just to add in, we also have a lot of, like, when someone signs up, we created basically automated lead nurturing. This is before Facebook marketing, but we have an automatic lead nurturing with follow-up emails and text messages that we put in through our operating system, so that when someone did get put into the system or booked for an NSI, there was an automatic chain of emails and text messages that went to that person, so that we were constantly keeping in contact with them until the date or the time of their NSI.
How long did it take for you guys to build out that lead nurture sequence, the automated one?
A week, was it?
Yeah,
I was in total morning.
I don't know how fast people go through the incubator, but I mean, like, there was nights where I was up till, like, I would just stay up all night and just get like I would write out processes all night long, and then I think sometimes we would come back to our mentor and she would be like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys have done all this stuff.
Yeah, I think we did the I think I did all the emails, like all the follow-up emails and the text messages done in one day, and then I actually went to visit my family up north, and I still, like, each morning before my family was up, I finished off like all of our follow-up on-ramp emails. So like we went through it pretty quick.
I think we were kind of lucky because we were doing it together. So we would go through all the modules. Sometimes we would sit down and do it together, go through the modules, and then we would just say, okay, hey, you get this done, I'll get this done. So I think at the same time, it's kind of hard to explain, but Gibby was getting those done, and I think I was rolling out the on-ramp program at that time, like actually building that. So by the time he had all the automations and those systems in place, the on-ramp was built out and all the NSI stuff was implemented. So it was kind of just came together as one, and then we were ready to present it to our 2 head coaches.
That's beautiful. Teamwork makes the dream work. I love it. That's great. But I mean, I guess I only asked that because it took some time, it took some late nights, but it was, once you did it, right? It was done.
It's the beauty of it. Once it's in place and running, and you can kind of stick and move, right? You get one thing done, you make sure it runs, and then you move on. And then if you got to come back to it later on, but at least it's been running that time, right?
You kind of running through it yourself too, and then that way you can see if you made any mistakes or if there's any flaws anywhere, anything you can fix, and before you pass it on to another team member, right? I feel like that's super important too. It's probably pretty easy when you get busy to just make a system up and be like, I'm not even going to run this. I'm just going to give it to my coaches to operate. And then they run into issues and you're like, well, I don't even know where the issue came from.
Right. You gotta beta test it first or put yourself through it. Yeah.
That's what our mentor told us anyway. Like, she's like, you guys have to run some NSIs yourself. You have to run some on-ramps yourself before you pass it along. So that was what we did.
All right, so now you guys have some systems, right? So you built out an automated lead nurture sequence. You standardized the process for booking no-sweat intros or for people who come in through any kind of pipeline. And the sales process itself is written down. The on-ramp process is written down. Now you guys are ready for some paid traffic. What happened?
So that was at that point, I think we finished the incubator.
Yeah, we moved in.
And then we were introduced to another, like the marketing mentor. And he got us started going through like the incubator for Facebook marketing. I had actually already like played around with ads with a friend of mine. Cause I had realized after, that guy had approached about ads, I had started looking into it with a friend of mine who does marketing. And he's like, yeah. He kind of walked me through Facebook, showed me how to build out like advertisements, how to put all that stuff in. I didn't know too much about the details of it, but I knew how to build one. So I had already built a couple ads that we weren't running. I didn't turn on. I just built them. I don't know why. I didn't even know about it in the incubator yet. So when I went through the incubator, we were going through a few of the stages, and I'm like, I already know how to do all this stuff. So that kind of saved me a lot of time, like actually how to build up an ad. So I think by the time we got to that point, I had already had the ads built when we met Dan.
We had some stuff. We had no copy. We didn't have
no. We didn't have the actual copies yet because those were all in your folders. But I had already had used some like stock photos from our gym and stuff like that. And all I had to do really was just cut and paste it into our ad sets, change the like demographic, change our limitations on who we wanted this to approach. I could see how that part of it would be very difficult if you were doing it on the fly. Like you would really have to sit down and go through it. So I kind of had like a semi-mentor take me through it and then I went back through it and kind of learned the details about it. So I was able to focus more on that stuff.
I was the opposite, where I had tied to that little prelude Facebook thing before we got into the Facebook marketing incubator. Right. I had zero. So when I started talking with Dan Besington, our marketing mentor, that was like learning from scratch for me. And Dan makes it he made it really simple and easy to understand. So I was able, Tyler was already like right on the same page with Dan. Like every click was like, yeah, I know how to do that. We're good. Yeah. And he moved through really quick. But Dan also made it very understanding for me to go through. So that, Tyler handles most of the Facebook marketing stuff right now, but I have a very good understanding of what's going on when Tyler does stuff. Like it's just that he does a lot of the click and drags and a lot of the typing and stuff like that. But I have because of Dan and going through that with me, I have 100% understanding of it.
Yeah. So logistically going through and being able to build it up, I had a good understanding of, but I still didn't understand like the metrics of it. So I think going through the incubator for Facebook marketing really taught me like what the numbers mean. So like your clicks per link, or your link clicks, or your cost per lead, or like those different numbers, like that huge like page of numbers that you're like, what are all these numbers? Like, yeah,
right.
I kind of that. So,
tons of columns.
Yeah, just like what it's telling you, how they're performing, and important stuff for like when to shut down like ad sets, or like shut down one ad in a set, or change the swap the picture out, or swap the description or details out. And Dan kind of helped us with that stuff, and it's actually super important for keeping things like learning and keeping things operating at a certain level. So
then you reach this. So then for your first campaign, how much traffic did you end up generating? How many leads?
So we're still running our first campaign with we started with the 8-week female pro challenge.
Yep.
And the one I told you about there, I think we've been running it since May 23rd or 24th. So we're just over a month. I think it's a month and 4 days. And that was our first campaign that we rolled out. So we ran one ad set with 3 ads, like 3 copies. I think for the first 3 weeks, 2 were performing really well, and 1 was performing a little poorer than the other. So we swapped it out, and then now they're all running at the same level. I think we're still pretty low on that, but anyway, they generated in the first month, I think we generated 110, and now I think in the last 4 days we generated another like 15. So we were at 125 leads in just over a month. And
so you did that 100. We hit that point. We hit the 100 lead. That actually happened.
Yeah, it actually happened.
And so what happened? How did you guys handle that? Or you just handled it? You knew you could handle it. You had it done.
First off, having all those processes in place made it pretty easy. I think at first we were a little I think we started getting a little bit overwhelmed with it, but then I went back through the incubator and was like, well, how do you handle this? Like if you get too many people. And I think the first problem we had, and it was something that we didn't see coming, was we were trying to tend to these people's schedules instead of worrying about our schedule. So we were worrying about them a little more than ourselves. And I went back through and it said, just give them times to book. Don't say when does it work.
Right.
When does it work for you? Because people will come, like you have 9 people that want to come in at one time, or we just went back. So we had that problem because our coaches were saying, well, if this time doesn't work for you, I'll make it work for you. What time? We had people coming at 9 o'clock at night, people coming in at 7 in the morning, and our coaches really couldn't make it work, but they were making it work. You know what I mean? So we went back to, okay, here's your 3 slots. These are the times we have available. And that really kind of streamlined the volume, and we were able to handle it a little better. And we tried to book people in very quick, so it'd keep them in that 3-day window. If it wasn't that day or right then, it was within the next 2 days.
We would also do if you're available to come in right now, come in right now.
Yeah. And we just told the coaches really, because at that point after we had run it, we did the first probably 30 leads. We were doing the NSIs, and I did the first couple on-ramps. And then after that, we passed it off. So they had another 95 leads at that point. And I think they were getting a little overwhelmed because they were doing that. They were saying, come in now, come in, whatever works for you. I'll book you in. I said, put in your availability on your schedule. And if those times don't work for people, then we'll have to find another time that works for them. Like, we're going to generate enough leads here that we can make it work. We can't just put it on their schedule because it's not going to work.
Yeah, giving them that I've got this time available. I got option A and option B. Which would you prefer? Right.
I personally think it actually makes it easier for them. I feel like a lot of the time when you say, "Hey, what's best for you?" They either can't think of a time, or they don't actually know like what works for them. If you give them a time, if you just give them a time, like they'll agree to something. You know what I mean? You give them a couple options, they'll make it work. I'm the same way. If I'm given an appointment, like I'll show up for my appointment.
Totally. Awesome. And I know we talked about at the beginning, so 100 leads. So you guys generated what, over $5,000 of front end sales from that first campaign?
Yeah, I think the actual calculation is like 5,100 something, and we've spent about 800. We're just over 800. I want to say 840 or $50. Not far off from that, just on that the female one. And Dan is our mentor for marketing. He wanted us to start with the females and practice on working with the women first. He said it's just a little bit different as far as the sales tactics go. So we started working on that. We did the first few, got our team working on it, and they kind of got into the sales thing, and they've learned a lot from watching you on the incubator and going through your stuff. So they're constantly going through it.
That's awesome. But besides this additional growth in revenue from the paid ads, like I know we talked about raising prices and raising the value of your service. Obviously you've generated enough additional income to hire that other coach. What have you seen as the big change, the big difference after going through the incubator between before and where you guys are now?
I think the biggest change that we've seen after going through the incubator is that through implementing all these, our SOPs and all these processes, it's given Tyler and I an opportunity to step back from the hands-on day-to-day stuff, and it allows us to grow the business, work on new things, work on building out revenue streams. And that's another big thing is revenue streams. Like we had one single revenue stream before we started with the incubator.
Yeah, we were like, we need 300 members. We need 300 CrossFit members or we're going to go bankrupt.
Yeah, now we have multiple different revenue streams. We have a business that stands on more than one leg. So that's been one of the biggest things. But since doing the incubator, Tyler and I sit back and we can look at either bringing in new revenue stream, like implementing new revenue streams, or creating new SOPs, or really sitting back and evaluating what works and what doesn't work for us. So I don't even think that before the incubator process, I don't even think Tyler and I wouldn't have been able to take that that 4 days and go to Chicago and for the summit and learn everything that I did there again. So it's given us the ability to step back and really grow our business as opposed to just work in our business.
That's amazing, and I think that's great, and I think that's exactly that's the point, right? We want you guys working on the business instead of in the business, 100%. That's the only way that it can work, I think. And so you guys have come a long way, right? You started as coaches 3 years ago. You took over this business without any kind of background in business. You guys said it yourself, and then you went from charging under $50 less, $80 less than market value for your services to being able to turn that around, to being able to grow your team, to get systems in place to a point where, hey, if you want to attract 20, 30 new members a month and generate some extra revenue, you guys can do that. Your infrastructure can handle it. You know how to do it. So what do you think has been the key to the success so far for you guys?
What's the key to our success so far? I would say teamwork and communication through consistency, working consistently with each other. Good communication between Tyler and I to make sure that we're both handling the size of the business that we need to handle. Good positive communication with our coaches is a key to success. Also, for me specifically, I think the key to my success is understanding what I don't know and reaching out to people that have done this before. I find I gain a lot of knowledge through just the Two Brain family, on the Facebook marketing page, on the actual the
resources,
the Facebook page. So yeah, going after the resources that we understand, we don't know how to do this, so let's talk to someone who has, rather than trying to spin in circles and trying to figure it out on our own. I think that's been the biggest key to our success, is just understanding what we don't know and looking at the resources that we have and utilizing them.
Yeah, I think just like the willingness to not fail, man. Like I feel like we'd be willing to do anything to just make it work. If I have to run 9 Christmas Palooza competitions a year, I'll do it to keep the business afloat. You know what I mean? I wasn't just going to coast into the ground. We would have done anything we had to, regardless if we had got into the Two Brain thing. I think just getting into the Two Brain thing and doing the incubator just made that process and learning way more valuable. And instead of spinning our tires for 5 years and just grinding, we kind of streamlined things, and our efforts were a lot more focused on things that were going to pay off down long term, and give us the ability to keep growing and keep implementing new things. And I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people get it done. It's just, it takes them an exponentially longer period of time to get these things in place. And it costs you a lot of money to learn where you're making mistakes. So I think we kind of going through the incubator kind of helped us just expedite that process and saved us a lot of money and time. And I'm grateful for it for sure. And I know that it's made our gym better, and I know that it's made it a way better environment, and it's given the coaching environment, and from an employee standpoint, way more opportunity. So way more valuable for us on all fronts.
That's awesome, guys. And I think that, what you guys are saying, communication and And I think that's probably key, especially for partnerships. And we've been on here for 40 minutes, but I can tell, you obviously guys have a good rapport and a good understanding with one another on kind of who's doing what, and keeping that line of communication open constantly, I think is probably a big key there, because a lot of partnerships don't last.
I don't know if we discussed that.
Yeah. We may need to do a whole other episode just to talk about how to sustain a good partnership. But yeah, tell me a little about the rules thing.
So this is actually pretty recent.
I think it kind of happened organically too. Like we kind of didn't step on each other's toes a lot at the start anyway, but we were kind of just, he was doing some of the same things I was doing. We were kind of just overlapping, and I think we kind of just said, hey, like, you need to focus on this. I think that was actually before we got into Incubator, where we kind of realized, hey, look, like, you got to focus on this, you focus on that. It'll just make it a little bit more manageable for us. Because I feel like we ran into the problem with a partnership. I think the biggest problem that we noticed right off the bat was people come and ask you one thing, and then they go and ask the other guy the next thing, and then one guy's saying this, one guy's saying that, and I think we kind of just put a nail in the coffin right away on that. It was like, hey, like, we're an open line with each other. So if you ask John one thing and ask me one thing, I'm telling you right now, we've already communicated, and we already know what's going on. So you're not going to be able to, like, pull the wool over on our eyes, so to speak, in that situation. So from the start, we kind of always had good communication in that respect. But I think that was the hardest obstacle, being a partnership at the start, was people would try to say one thing to one guy, and then you would get information from another source. And then it was kind of like, well, you have two things being said at the same time. And we kind of just put a stop to that right away.
Yeah, we just knew what each other were good at. And then I let Tyler be good at what he's good at, and he lets me be good at what I'm at. We do have to cross over it sometimes and do things together. And obviously, and sometimes I got to help him out. Sometimes he's got to help me out. But we've kind of just established what our roles are and what things we take care of. And if it's something that he purely takes care of on his own, I don't bother him about it. I don't get in his way about it. I don't interject. And same thing with me. If it's something that I take care of on my own, he just lets me handle it and do that. But we are fully aware of what each other are doing.
That's great, guys. And so, speaking of communication, if people want to talk to you, if people want to find you, if they want to just learn more, how can they find you?
They can easily fire us an email at crossfitresurrection@gmail.com. They could DM us on our Instagram page. We're really quick to get back on that. Emails, I think we respond in less than an hour, or emails even quicker most of the time. But that's the easiest way to get a hold of us is via email, or drop us a line on.
Yeah, we both have access to all that stuff, so we all see it.
Or our Facebook page.
Yeah,
our Facebook page is a good way to get a hold of us too.
Awesome, guys. Well, I'm excited for what the rest of 2019 holds for you. I'm excited for the men's campaign, and I'm just excited for your continued growth.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.